Hello, hello, and welcome again to Outside the System. I'm your host, Brad Stafford, with my lovely wife, Aubrey Stafford. Today, we are going to dive into our experience in South Africa, so in Cape Town in particular. So we were over there for about 10 years, off and on, homeschooled the whole time, lots of struggles, lots of challenges.
Lots of fun.
Lots of fun. But ultimately, we want to give you guys a little bit more of a backstory and really what we learned over there and how we're applying a lot of the things that we learned over there in difficult times to today. So I guess the first thing is, how did we get over there? How did we...
Yeah, because we were living on the farm,
Yeah.
which we loved. Like, we loved being able to have our own chicken and eggs and milk and cheese and yogurt. Loved all those things. But then I think I had always kind of had an interest in moving someplace else. Mm-hmm. Both of us were like blessed with fantastic parents. Our parents were close by, lots of extended family close by. And really no one ever really moved away. So we kind of did that first little foray into living a little bit further away when we went to the Shenandoah Valley. Mm-hmm. That was like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then, so I had been doing just a lot of research on, like, you know, how do people live overseas? Because it's actually a lot harder than you think. You can't just like rock up to a country and be like, hey, we want to live here. You have to have visas, and it's pretty complicated. Yeah. So I mean, we were kind of talking about it, and you were not super interested.
No, we had looked at a number of different places. We looked at the Basque region of France, just because it was kind of like, we loved our time on the farm, but we, and I say we, me eventually, said, we have with my working online,
right,
and then with the homeschooling,
and our kids were little. I mean, Micah was the oldest, was like 7.
Yeah.
At the time.
So we kind of looked around and said, not necessarily is this it, but should we do something different?
And we had the opportunity, and that was the thing where a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
You know, like most of my family members, your family members, were tied to that area because of work.
Yeah.
Where you started working online like immediately after we got married.
Yeah.
And so we could go anywhere.
Yeah.
And that was like an exciting opportunity, but also a little bit like you all of a sudden have so many open possibilities. I feel like that's always been a challenge for us because we haven't had a tie in a way to a lot of places.
Like my job never, a lot of times I think people's jobs are their like tap routes to a location.
Yeah, and it helps you make decisions because you only have so many options. Like my parents couldn't have left.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it would have been silly for them to leave their jobs.
Right.
You know, around the Maryland area. So for us, we had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And also we were not, so this was when we had 4 kids. Mm-hmm. And then the biggest trip we had taken, remember, where we were like, okay, let's just try a couple like a little travel with the kids. And it was Texas we went to.
Yeah.
And I can remember, I just laughed so hard because I was trying to control like I was pregnant with our 4th baby. So that means Micah was 6. So it was like 6, 4, and 2, not even.
Yeah.
So like 5, 3, and 18 months or something. Mm-hmm. I brought blackout shades, blackout curtains, and a noisemaker, because to me, the most important thing was like naps, and which I still will stand by. That I feel like having nap time for your little kids is essential. Yeah. But I think you do just try to control as much as you can, and that was a big learning process for me. That I think all the big travel and the big moves helped me to see the reality that you actually can't control everything.
Yeah.
So, we went to Texas and it was super fun.
Yeah.
And that was our biggest trip we had ever taken with our kids.
Yeah.
Was Texas.
Yeah.
That we flew there.
And then, it was, I guess, the summer of 2014. Mm-hmm. My best friend Dustin had married a South African girl, and for years, and this was before WhatsApp, this was before Telegram, before Signal. He was living over there, and every time I got a chance to talk to him, or he came back, it was, oh man, you guys have to come over. You have to come over and visit. You have to come over and visit. And every time I would say no.
Because we had no clue what it was like
Yeah,
either.
I'm not going to the dark continent. I'm an American. We don't do that.
Well, yeah, we had no idea. Like, I didn't even have a clue.
You can
like Nelson
explain
Mandela.
it.
Like, you've heard of him if you've been public schooled. You know, you've heard of Nelson Mandela. You've heard of things in South Africa, but you don't really have any clue of what it's really actually like there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so he came back. And it was at the time when we were milking a lot of goats and doing a lot of the farm stuff. And he kept saying, "Oh man, you guys have to come. You guys have to come over." And I'm like, "No, man, I'm not going." So it was in Riva at Mike's Bar and Grill and
Crab House.
Crab House. Sorry, Mike's Crab
Get it right.
House. And I said, "If you drink this liter,"
No, he
of
came to
goat
our house, right? Wasn't he? Because you had the goat milk there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I forget exactly how the
yeah.
bet went down.
Right.
But ultimately, I said, because he was like, "I'll never drink that goat milk." And I said, "I'll never go to Africa."
Right.
So I slammed down the liter of milk in front of him and I said, "If you drink this, then
Which
we'll
was
come."
very good. I don't know why he even had a...
It's just Dustin.
Delicious.
But he ended up drinking it. And then the day before he left, we bought tickets.
Right, and the other
because he had a place over
That's
there.
what I was, yeah,
He
so we just
a
had to
great-
pay.
Yeah.
And do you remember at the time, we had been looking, because I had a cousin who was stationed in Alaska.
Yep.
And we were looking with another cousin about, like, because they also had young kids, about, like, doing a big trip and taking our kids to Alaska.
Yeah.
And by the time we paid for airfare, Airbnb, or wherever we were going to stay, and renting a car, it was going to be so much more expensive than actually flying to South Africa, because his wife's family had a place we could stay for free.
Yeah.
And so all we were doing was paying for tickets and renting a car, which is, if you have dollars going there,
So far.
so much cheaper.
Yeah.
So that's what we decided to do that.
Yep. So we went over, and that was in February of 2015, and so we packed up and we're preparing
For our
everything
three-week trip,
3-week trip over there, and
I did have to pack lighter.
you did have to pack lighter. We had to, we
The
learned
Texas one.
we learned you have to weigh your bags
Yes.
on international flights.
Yes.
But we got over there, and the trip itself was terrible. The flights over, Micah and Eliza were both air sick.
Because the first flight over, you're just flying the 6 or 7 hours to London.
Yeah.
And then I think we did Virgin Air, whatever. And the flight was really nice. So it was a super nice flight. But then you don't realize that no matter what, like you're basically waking up in the middle of the night. So you get this 6 or 7 hour flight, you like pretend sleep on the flight, and then you're waking up in the middle of your body's like, it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And with little kids, it was the middle of the night. And kids don't ever sleep well on airplanes. Like, I just don't think they do. And our youngest she wasn't even one. Mm-hmm. So having to be on an airplane for that long, and that was just the 7 hour flight with a 1-year-old, and also just like that like kind of internal fear of knowing that you're gonna be the annoying person that maybe their baby might cry.
Yes.
And she was really, really good. Mm-hmm. So she was fine. But it was that we had the long layover, remember? And we made the fatal error of taking them to the children's play area at the Virgin Atlantic Lounge.
Yes.
That was our fatal flaw, because we're like, oh, we have such a long layover.
Let's
take
have
them play in that little child pit they have with like the all the different soft stuff. And so they were climbing around there, and they had a fun time. And then
might as well been licking the bottom of a train or something like that.
We realized that. And so then we fly down, and Brad gets motion sickness. I don't. We were pretty sure Micah probably would, so we were giving Dramamine.
Yeah.
But then I didn't realize that the 11 hours was just, you had
have to dose them again.
Right? So, and it was so hard, because I remember Micah was 7 years old, and he was just started throwing up, and we still had probably 2 hours left, and I wasn't next to him. Like, he was at the far end of the row, and there was this older couple, an older American couple that were going for a holiday.
Yeah.
And they were so nice and kind, and they're like, you're doing such a good job, buddy.
Yeah.
And he was so, like, it was so rough. And I think, I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot more, but doing those kind of things where it's so hard as a parent to like let go of control, especially for me, like it was hard to let go and be like, oh my gosh. And then you realize he's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks that he's vomiting.
Yeah.
It sucks. And then Eliza started vomiting.
Yeah.
And
then we get off the plane.
Right, so we make it off the plane.
Yeah, finally, everyone's like, yay, everything's fine. And then at Cape Town International Airport, I guess a number of planes had landed at that time. people were going down the escalator and bailing
Jumping
off because they were
because
just packing in. And
there
I
was
said,
no room.
we're going to give it 5 minutes to get
It
through
was like, I
there.
just felt like, I was like, we're in Africa. Like, it was so different. I just feel like that never would have happened in America, that you, literally, there's so many people that people couldn't get off the escalator at the bottom.
Yeah,
the line was so long and so packed that people were jumping off. So we're like, all right, we're just going to stay up here in the second
Who's
floor.
managing this?
But then
Nobody.
But the other, do you remember, people were so nice when, like, this was, 2015. If we had kids, they would let us skip the line every time.
Yes.
We hardly ever had to wait in line.
Well,
ever.
all you had to really do was ask.
Yeah, but they wouldn't even come up to you. Remember? I mean, they
some
would, like,
of them, yeah.
they would come up and see that you had kids. Mm-hmm. Especially in Africa, you have kids. They even the Europeans sometimes would let you bump up and not just get on the plane early.
Yeah. Move up in lines, like we went through like passport checks faster.
Really fast. Yes.
Yeah, it was.
So then we get in the car.
It was very nice. Yeah.
We get the rental car, and Brad's driving, on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah.
And then I think we had given them Dramamine again. I'm pretty sure I re-gave it on the airplane.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if it didn't take or whatever, because then they're car sick.
Yep.
Because we're going around mountains and like
Ocean Road but it was
so beautiful.
it was such like a hard thing, and I think it really kind of set us to life as doing hard things.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know the end of the outcome, you just have to do the next right thing, and sometimes the next right thing is going to be hard. Like,
also,
how do we find a bag for that kid in the back?
Yes.
How far are we away?
Right. And that you are stronger, and they are stronger than you think. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think for us, we had an abhorrence of vomits.
Yep, I the most.
Yes.
I the most.
So and this trip, that was the beginning of the vomit to come. Like that,
yeah.
I mean, it was coming pretty much the whole 3 weeks.
Yeah.
There was vomit involved.
Yep.
Like, never in our lives had we ever experienced so much vomit. And Micah was so tough. I can literally still picture them in the back of the car. And but it was so
just pale face.
I'm like, it's okay. You guys are doing so well. Everyone's tired, but then we get there, and this is how I approached all those things afterward. Is we get there and we are literally in an ocean front flat. I mean, we go out on our balcony and you just are looking out at False Bay.
Yeah.
It was mountain, beach. We were East Coast people. Mm-hmm. You had been to California before. Mm-hmm. I had never been to California. I had never seen really such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Then you watch the sunset, and I feel like that helped me from then on to be like, if you can picture yourself where you're going to be, so that would always be my trick. I would just imagine myself sitting on the couch of where I knew I was going. Yeah. And then thinking of myself 2 days before, thinking, you're going to be sitting there. You're going to get there. Right. It's going to be over. Right. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
You're going to survive. You might not sleep. And so then we would always tell people, you just go into it expecting to not sleep. You don't. And
the only way out is through. It's
right.
kind of the mindset. And I think that's a good picture. Even if you're not, even us coming back to Florida, where we're not seeing sunsets, we're not having ocean view. We're not. It's okay. Well, we're going to be on our couch, and there is
that feeling of relief. It's that feeling that you there is an outcome. It's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
It will be over.
Right.
That flight will be over. You will just figure out a way to get through, and then with the long flights, we've ended up doing the 16-hour flights. Also with toddlers and babies, and really just it helps you to see it will be over.
Yeah.
It's going to be long. It will be over. You kind of celebrate half-hour chunks.
Yeah.
Another hour's gone by. Another hour's gone by, and you just find things to do.
Yeah. Either the plane crashes and we're off the flight, or we get there and we're off the flight.
Right. It's
Either way, there's an
just
end to
everything.
This. You just have to. And I think the one thing that is really just something that I feel like with homeschooling, work, dad parenting, mom parenting, everything, the only thing that you can really control is your attitude.
That's right. 100%.
That's
right.
it. And especially with kids, if you're flustered and frustrated and losing your temper and complaining, guess what?
They're going to see, right?
They're going to see that, and they're going to do that as well. So it's like really the only thing that you have control over.
Yeah, and I think, you know, sometimes you feel like you have more control when you're in your everyday life, right? When you're in your everyday life and you're in your home, you're in your normal routine, you can feel like you have control.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what worked so well was that like we kind of forced ourselves to get into these positions that we knew were going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And I can literally remember being on those flights and being like, okay, I've never actually had to pray like this in my life, like just to pray for patients, like dealing with a 1-year-old that's uncomfortable, tired, wants a nonstop nurse, you know, and having other kids to take care of. And then we, you know, had more kids. And yeah, that it's that thing of the only thing I control is my attitude. They're looking to you.
Yeah.
Your kids are looking to you.
Right.
They're looking to how you handle it.
Right.
If you're smiling, if you're relaxed, they're going to be like that. And it was, for me, it was that we actually all know we don't have control really about everything, but sometimes you kind of have the illusion of being more in control of things than you really are. And for me, it was doing those kind of really hard trips that, and also it's the mental preparation for something you knew was going to be really hard.
Yeah, because
you knew.
Spoiler alert, I don't like flying. I don't like flying. I don't like it. I would rather drive.
And I hate driving.
I'm not averse to flying, but I just am not. I just don't like flying. And so
Brad's like a newborn baby. Like I think they call it self-habituating or something like that, where like, you know, when you have like a literal newborn a couple weeks old, it doesn't matter where you take them and they will just sleep on their mom. That's Brad on the airplane.
I just
will sit there. He'll just
sleep.
Falls asleep and like I'm not exaggerating. It's been before the flight's taken off where he's back there with his eyes closed in the blanket, like tucked up to his chin. Maybe not that way. Yes,
I'm still helpful.
He will
I will wake up and help.
Oh, totally will. He will totally help. But it's like I have to kind of like whack his. I always make sure I can like hit him somehow, so I can be like, wake up! I need something from up here. I need something, and he will. There's been times where he's had to like sleep in between two kids, like with his arm between them because they were fighting over their one little seat.
Well, I remember it. I forget which flight it was, but. Eve and Susanna were laying sort of like foot to face.
Because we had the plane pals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In between two seats, and then what would happen was one of them would flop, the other one would flop, then they just like bicker. And so I would hardly call it sleeping, more of like laying and nodding off, like
with your arm in between them.
With my arm between them, knowing I'm gonna. If I stay like this for too long, I won't be able to turn my head for a week. But I'm like the fighting and trying to get them to sleep was more important.
And then you would usually like when we kept having more kids, you would end up having the toddler, or like the 2 or 3 year old. If I would have the baby, which newborns are the easiest.
Yeah, newborns are a secret.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the trip itself, I would say it kind of went in. So the sickness and the challenges were one thing, but we get there, we're overwhelmed with the beauty of the place.
Right.
It's stunning. Everyone should go to Cape Town, South Africa, period. It is a beautiful country, period. It's just beautiful. Then by week 2, we had just met a lot of people.
Because we weren't going there as tourists, right? We were going there because Dustin was there.
Yep.
And Karin was there, and then we also, my aunt had a friend who her son, or her brother and his family were there. Yeah. So we had met people. Yeah. We also didn't say that, the first night then Eliza puked.
Yeah, she puked in the bed.
And then the whole rest of the time, it is in America, like we're drinking water, we're eating things that the kids weren't used to. So when I say it was a nonstop having to deal with kids being sick, it was the whole time.
Yeah, it was all the way.
It was the whole time. So, but in the midst of that,
yes, and so in the midst of all that, the people that we met, because I think what happens is when people go to foreign countries, sometimes they just stay in they stay in cliques. They stay
like their expat
group. They stay in the expat group, and we never were like that. We did things with Americans, we did things with expats, but they weren't our sole friend group there. Right. So that first. Like the second week, we're just blown away by the people, and then by the third week, through that friend, we met another American family. They were leaving, and that organization needed someone to teach business, who knew farming, who was willing and able to move over there. And so that sort of fit into, wow, we could actually live here. And so after the 3 weeks, we went back and prayed a lot about it and consulted and said, let's go.
Yeah, because I can remember we were driving, and I just remember it's so different.
Yeah.
You know, and I had been to like Scandinavia before, but like, and we had been to like, you know, Mexico, the Caribbean, but when you go someplace where it was so different, and this was way before COVID. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, Cape Town was more like it was like when we were growing up.
Yes,
you know,
that's
like,
that's
like
the other
when
thing.
Did the iPhone like the?
It wasn't until COVID that it
well,
really
yeah, because I was
shifted.
trying to remember, like, obviously people had iPhones there, but like it was much different in the terms
culture,
of way, like the culture,
So they say that South Africa is about 10 years behind the U.S.
Or was.
Until COVID, everything sort of exponentially increased with the globalism and the technology and yuck. But at that time, it very much felt more, even within those 3 weeks, pop in and have dinner with random people and just go out and to the beach and meet up with other people that you knew. And it was that area was I mean, it was probably, I think it's probably 200,000 people.
Yeah, not a
but it felt very small town and felt very, very safe. I mean, that was the other thing. We felt
and also
very
it was
safe.
just different where, you know, we grew up and like when we grew up on a farm, but we didn't really have any experience with like towns really. You know, like we were kind of more like suburban kids where you didn't really have like a town center.
Right.
And you didn't really have that feeling of, like clearly you went to school with the same kids, you played sports with the same kids, you went to church with the same people, but it wasn't really like you would just go to a coffee shop and be friends with the people there. Yeah. And know their name. Yeah. And so there, also the whole restaurant culture being different there, where even back then, going to a restaurant in the U.S. is always more expensive than it is to prepare your own food. Yeah. But there, it was pretty similar in the price. Yeah. And then they would always have places for the kids to play. Yes. So it became much more of like an actual experience, not just like, all right, let's go get some food. Right. Let's eat some food really quick. All right, let's go home. It'd be like, okay, you get there kind of early. Maybe you meet friends there. The kids all play. You have like a leisurely dinner. And also as we found out later, there's a lot of different things about that. But I think for us, for me at least, the attraction in the beginning was it just was so different. It was unlike anything else that I'd ever. It's a very cafe culture. Yeah. Where in the U.S. it's turntables over culture. Right. So that's the difference. Yeah. There's blessings and curses because sometimes it takes you 20 minutes to get your check. Right. But other times you're not feeling rushed to make the next decision. You're not feeling, I need to do this. And especially with the kids, I think that was another thing. It just felt like it felt more old school, where people didn't view kids and families as burdens. And there were issues in terms of just general like kid management, where parents didn't manage their kids and they're wild and you need to tase them and like tie them up in the back or something. But for the most part, everyone was generally more familially oriented and welcoming. Yeah. So it felt different. Do you remember around that time? Because I can remember that was when like the younger, like teenagers were having phones. Or like, you know, teenagers had that, in the U.S. Or like an 11-year-old would have a phone. Yeah. And we were already feeling like that kind of pressure when we had little kids, not to give them phones, but to really just start kind of like jumping on the carousel of, okay, you've got kids, and now you need to sign up for sports. Now what are you going to do for this? Right. What are you going to do for that? Even with homeschooling, there was just like a really, like, there's just an assumption that you're just going to have a bunch of things to do, and I didn't want to live like that. You and I both grew up playing sports all the time, and our parents, you know, were like, great parents, and they wanted us to be able to experience all those sports. It wasn't as bad when we were kids, but we both did like the travel teams, where you're playing every weekend.
Yeah.
That's your whole life is the sport.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And it was also, I remember feeling like in the U.S., and again, living outside the U.S. makes you appreciate America in ways you didn't realize.
Yes, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
But then there also, it was hard to find people like us, I felt like, who didn't exactly already, when their kids were 7, to start signing them up for sports. Because we put Micah into soccer, remember?
Yeah.
And I can remember being like, okay, these dudes are like some overweight dads who are, I mean, we're going to teach him more playing in our backyard.
Right.
Than he would just, and then you're looking at, okay, it's right at dinner time. So then one of us is going to have to either take him to the game, to the practice, and the other one stays home and has dinner with the kids.
Yep.
Or we all go, and then I have to figure out dinner at the practice.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think
we both recognized that it had the cheese of sports had already started to slide off the cracker.
Yeah.
And I think I would love to do a dedicated
episode.
sport ball episode, because I've got a lot of feelings.
To say about that.
A lot of feelings on sport ball. But we recognized back then that it had become an idol, and it had become the thing that when you're worshiping something, you're sacrificing something else.
Yeah.
And so very clearly the worship of the travel teams, the sports, the busyness came at the sacrifice of our family, and we had been really just so blessed to be always around each other.
Right.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we always were around each other. And so to say, well, we're going to have to sacrifice some dinners, for what?
And it was also, do you remember, I don't even remember, it was a guy that wrote a book like literally that long ago, like 10 plus years. And it was something about busyness, and he was saying how
it was like a
an
short
article,
story.
An article, yeah, and it was
Yeah.
basically about how, it was like a badge of honor to be like,
yes,
hey, how are you doing? Just like super busy, and that's how everyone was talking, and we had really felt that a lot.
Very much.
Where there would be people that, they said they wanted to be like, yeah, we want to like hang out and do things, and then you'd get like on their calendar 3 weeks later,
if that,
on a Tuesday night,
if that,
that's when they had an opening with their kids, and I also feel like I realized that a lot of that is actually easier to sign up your children for a lot of activities and sports than actually look at them and be like, okay, what are we going to do together?
Right.
What are we going to do as a family?
Right.
What could your kid be doing instead?
Yeah.
Because you are, like you said, you're giving something up.
Yeah.
You're replacing something with those activities. And it is easier for a lot of people because you don't really have to think about it. You're just like, okay, they've got soccer on this day, they've got this on this day.
Outsource there, outsource.
Yes.
And that comes at a significant cost. I feel like in today's society, the more younger people, I guess, that I talk to anyway, because I go pretty hard on the sport ball with any guy that I know, they recognize the trade that isn't worth it. And they can also kind of see it in the culture itself. They see the fruit in parents who have sacrificed everything for their kids' sport, where it's just mind-blowing to me. The tiniest percentage of people actually do anything with that sport beyond, at best, they become a coach of something. But what they end up sacrificing more often than not is a close family, a level of authority and respect, understanding who these people are and why I need to stand
an identity apart from the sport. That was a big,
Yes. So I feel like I'm hopeful in terms of as I continue to spread the gospel of sport ball, that more and more families are going to. Because that's the other thing is. When I start talking about it in particular, people are like, "Oh, you don't like sports." I'm like, "No, I don't like what sports has become. I like athleticism.
Right.
I like staying in shape. I like making good food choices. I like
being
taking
active,
care of your body.
doing things outside in general.
Those are all good things. It's gone too far. It's moved too far. And what was interesting, and that was something we noticed when we had moved back there, or when we moved there the first time, is the friends that we made. Not all Americans, mostly South Africans. The sport that their kids didn't actually sacrifice their family time. It didn't sacrifice their time to be around other people.
Because it was built into the school day.
It was
that was the
built
bigger
into-
difference.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was built into the school day. So school was over early, like 1 o'clock or 1:30 for depending how old the child was. And then if they played sport, they would do it right after school.
Yeah.
So it wasn't at dinner time. It
Yeah.
wasn't when, you know, your family should be having a meal together. And I was super convicted about that pretty young. That, you know, in our marriage,
Yeah.
that we would be having dinner together.
Yes,
like
for
I think
sure.
that once you let that domino fall,
Yeah.
it's so easy to let other things go.
Yeah.
So once you know, you were like, okay, well, it's only 2 days a week
Right.
that they have a, you know, soccer practice.
Right.
And then before you know, it's like, oh yeah, but then also now they've got a game on Friday. And now, you know, Saturday they've got a game.
Yeah.
And so you just, your whole life becomes oriented around the sports. And then the shocker is then people are surprised that their kids are narcissists because literally their whole life revolves around the sports. And,
Right.
you know, we were really fortunate that my aunt and uncle live right near us and they have 3 of like the most athletic boys that are in their 20s now.
Stellar human beings.
Stellar. And we're seeing them and we're like, okay, they are the best that they're gonna get.
Yep.
And you still see, like even my aunt like said to me not long ago, like sometimes she thinks maybe they shouldn't have leaned so into just supporting every decision that their sons wanted to do to make them like live their dream. You know?
Because I think
And-
it doesn't start. I think the hard part is, it doesn't start out as like you don't start out bowing to the idol.
Right.
You slowly move
Because
your
it has
way.
a good aspect. That's the thing. Because the
Yes.
sports have a good aspect.
Right.
Especially, you know, when the dad's involved in the coaching
Yep.
and the family's all going to the games and, you know, you're learning things. I mean, we probably should just do a whole nother
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a sport
like
ball episode.
But I think that was the thing back to Cape Town was that
it wasn't like
and the
that.
kids could be involved in things.
And it wasn't that kids weren't.
No, and our
athletic.
kids did things, but it would be in the early afternoon.
Yeah.
So it would be at 2 or 3 o'clock, and then we'd still be able to have dinner together. You'd still be able to spend your time as a family. And then, you know, when we first came back and we're telling people that we were going to go do it, because so what we went as on a volunteer visa. So we were like working for a missionary organization, but we were not like a typical missionary in the missionary model of raising money. So
Yeah.
Brad continued to work.
Right.
So he worked. So we were able to go over pretty quickly because we didn't do the normal kind of thing that people do to get a volunteer visa.
Yeah, there's the whole missionary thing. We can do another episode on that. Comes with a lot of sacrifice as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of, I think a lot of unnecessary pressure, bureaucracy, and
Right.
financial implications.
But we were able to actually do a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And I don't think our parents were very thrilled, enthused about it. And so we ended up going back, and it's, you know, you think about like, it was because our life was already in such an easy way to make it happen. Because
Yeah.
you could work from anywhere. We were homeschooling.
Yeah.
We were able to rent our house out. So it actually was really pretty simple to get everything in place, and we ended up getting the visas pretty quick. I think it took about 6 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And then by that time we were pregnant with our 5th baby.
Yeah.
And I just remember too, just being like not even having a care in the world. I'm like, this will be fine.
People were more worried
About that.
Well, maybe you should wait. No, what? No.
No.
I mean, at this point, it was our 5th. You've always stayed, and that was the other thing is you've always stayed active.
Yeah.
You've always figured out we can do another episode on
Yeah.
actually like homeschooling and taking care of yourself.
Or and also just the fact that like I had 4 like hospital births, like, you know, natural, but like with medication.
Yeah.
Hospital births, and then went to Cape Town and just went the whole other way with midwives.
Yeah.
And that whole
Home
thing, which
births.
again, like you just see how doing certain things opens up like a realm of things that you didn't really think was possible before.
Yeah.
And I think going to Cape Town really, it changed a lot of the way, like I don't know what it would have been like if I had stayed
Yeah.
in the United States as far as homeschooling, but it was not a normal, like most people did not homeschool. We had one other family, maybe 2 families that we knew that homeschooled.
Yeah, and it's I think ultimately what the blessing was is when you kind of are able to step out of it, because there's already this we don't like this, and you can't really put your finger on it, you know. Like I remember, like my dad mostly doesn't like music at church, and what it was the music is very effeminate. So being able to put your finger on the music in most churches is very effeminate and emotional. That's why a man doesn't. Right. That's why men don't like that, or they shouldn't like that. Mm-hmm. It was the same thing with us. Being outside of the United States gave us a different view, and it's not.
You don't have to leave America to do that.
You don't need to leave the country to do that.
But for us, that was how it worked.
Yes, especially now when we were early kind of radicalizing out and questioning a lot of the things that were quote unquote normal. Everyone did this.
Right.
You just put your kids in sports. You just do this. You just do. We were already questioning that. So the amount of people doing that now is a million more people than were doing it back then. We needed to get out in order to really help to also strengthen our family and to say this homeschooling is the most valuable thing. Mm-hmm. Our meal time is the most valuable thing. Our time together is the most valuable thing.
Right.
Where I think in the United States, we also could have been caught up in, because our kids are athletic.
Because
our kids are good at sports.
Yeah, and you have to actually fight against it. I think that was the thing, was that it really felt like a fight.
Yes.
To stay true to what principles
right.
you wanted to, where I feel like when we went over there, it was just a lot easier, like even in the sense of like screens and you know, at time, like for the kids to even have like an iPad or their own anything.
Yep.
Where when we first got there was no Amazon there. There was no like quick delivery of anything there. Of anything. I couldn't get stuff. I couldn't get like homeschool curriculums sent. I couldn't get a lot of books delivered. We just had to deal with what you had there. And then the internet too. Like, so the internet, you were working at night. So Brad would volunteer 3 days a week, all day, and then come home in the evenings and work.
Yeah.
And he would be on the computer working. And so I couldn't get on the computer at the same time. So it just made me where I think it just made me kind of go back to being like, I'm just going to read books when the kids are in bed then. I'm just going to read books when the kids are in bed. Okay, the baby's awake, okay.
Yes, go get her.
Yeah, but like it really...
I think it slowed down the thinking process to kind of allow us to take a step back and say, well, what should we be doing here? Like, do we need to be buying all these things? Like, you can't. It was much more difficult to get sold on products and services and stuff there because it wasn't this. I don't want to say the sales process wasn't as good, but the delivery process made you actually think about what you were purchasing. So, curriculums, books. That's why one of the things, and you've done a number of videos inside of the membership on building your home library.
Yeah.
That is for sure the most crucial thing, because
we travel with so many books, like an embarrassing number, but not really, because
our
that was
books have a lot of international flight experience.
But that was the thing, was that I knew that that's what I wanted our kids to be around books. So like the first year, I brought a lot, but I ended up leaving half of them back.
Yeah.
But I knew that that's what I wanted our kids to be surrounded by, books. I wanted them to have books all the time. I wanted them to just have constant access to it. So that meant that, you know, in each of our 50-pound suitcases, I would put 25 pounds of books.
Yeah.
Almost everything.
Right.
And so, but there, I didn't have access. And also, I wasn't like on social media. I wasn't watching what other homeschool women were doing. I wasn't really consuming that kind of stuff. I was just... I liked the classical pedagogy.
Yep.
And I had Charlotte Mason books, and I just went with that system, and I kind of constructed my own sort of just habits that then you were able to see that that's really what it is. It's the power of making big decisions, like we're just going to do a ton of reading. I'm going to read out loud every day. Yeah. We're going to focus on memorizing a lot of things and build a foundation, and that really so much of it is just your life, you know, like, and that gave me a freedom because I didn't have a lot of external inputs of this is what your day should look like. This is what my homeschool looks like. This is all these things where
I think a lot of people get
caught up in that.
Caught up or overwhelmed with.
There's so many options and so many people doing things so well and beautifully, and a lot of, you know, like encouragement. That quote in air quotes.
Yeah, air quotes.
That maybe isn't encouragement all the time because it's kind of taking you away from what the goal is.
Or what like you literally have in front of you.
Right.
You know, so if you have 2 kids, you're seeing this idyllic farmstead with this lady with 5 kids, and she's in a linen dress, and the dad's chopping wood, and all this. It's actually fake. And so you, as a person with 2 kids, you look at that and go, oh, that'd be so nice. Maybe we should have another kid. As opposed to saying, well, what am I blessed with right here? I've got these 2 kids. What can I do to get them reading more? What can I do to sacrifice other things in our life to make sure that we have a strong family?
Yeah.
How is my husband being involved? No, he can't chop wood, but you know what he can do? He can build computers. He can do electrical. You know, he can do. So I think that's the trap that we never really and still haven't fallen into, because we know that a lot of that stuff is purely fake.
Right.
But it's also doesn't deal with what your situation is, because our situation is different from our neighbor's situation, where they have one, I guess she's 2 years old, a 2-year-old, or our neighbor across the street where they have a 13-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Right.
So these 2 different families seeing this idyllic, here's the best curriculum, and here's what my schedule looks like, and here's all that. That's not real life. And that's the thing that we were blessed with in Cape Town, is just dealing with what we had in front of us. Because we weren't being swayed.
And it's like, I think that's
culturally either.
Right, because there, it felt like we were so much more in a community, and that's the thing that we've always had, like that's what always brought us back there all the time, was that there was just a different lifestyle there.
Yeah.
And you know, we've not lived in a lot of different places in America, and so I wouldn't say that doesn't exist in America at all. But I think it's harder to find in the United States in some ways, and so you really have to look for it or like try to create it yourself.
Yeah.
But I think the homeschooling there, it helped my mind as far as like a kid that was, you know, I was public schooled, went to a, you know, public 4-year university. I was good at school. It helped me break that model of school. Homeschooling needs to look like school.
Yeah.
It helped me break the idea of like you're preparing them for a job.
Because that's the other end of the extreme than the farm lady over here, and the
super academic, like you've got to check all these boxes off. And our kids were not even enrolled. They were basically, Micah was 7, so he was enrolled when we were in Maryland, I think for kindergarten, 1st grade. And then maybe Eliza was enrolled for kindergarten, I don't know. But then for the whole time, they were not enrolled. Ever, anywhere. They were not enrolled in South Africa. They were we were completely outside of any educational institution structure.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me, and I still have to still remind myself, it's not about all the stuff you accomplish in one day.
Yeah.
You clearly need to construct a foundation that is like robust for your child.
Yeah.
They need to be able to read well. They need to express themselves well. They need to write well. You need to work on memory. And the big thing for us, too, was that we realized that their worldview was the most important thing. And
thinking about the world around them. Because being in South Africa, you're dealing with
there's so many
people eating out of the trash can.
Right.
You're dealing with taxi drivers, which I love taxi drivers. I love the freedom of the Wild West of taxi drivers. But they're booking, you know, there's traffic and they're barreling down the middle lanes, you know, barely not hitting people.
Right.
You're dealing with a culture from the apartheid, and then also looking at the United States from afar and seeing the blessings and the curses of that. I think helping our kids to have that, really a strong biblical worldview,
and see that,
to help them discern those things.
When I see that was actually, it doesn't matter if you teach your kid how to spot every logical fallacy that exists.
No.
If they do not have a foundation that's based in a transcendent truth that you help them to see, then they're going to fall for anything that comes their way.
Yeah.
So I think because we were able to separate ourselves, and we didn't have, like, for good and for bad, we didn't have our family around. That we didn't have a lot of reason. You know, we couldn't say, can your parents watch the kids while we do this? Like, we did everything together, and we were around a lot of different people. And I think that helped us to really focus on that truth of saying, if you don't have this foundation, what's it worth?
Yeah.
Like homeschooling, you might as well have just sent them to
Yeah.
public school in a way. You know what I mean?
We really built our own family culture because we didn't allow a lot of the South African culture to infiltrate our family just as much as when we were in the U.S. and even now, we don't allow that Western consumer.
Right, because you can spot it a little easier. And I think, especially because the timing, and I think we talked about this before a while, like everyone's so nostalgic about the 90s, which the 90s are terrible.
Cringe.
I watched Beverly Hills 90210.
Stop
like
it,
it was
people.
so bad.
Stop
the
it.
90s are not good. But I think what it is they're nostalgic for that time before we had smartphones and iPhones and things like that.
Yeah.
So to us, we're a bit nostalgic because that was what early living in Cape Town at that time was for us. Because it was before it really had really sunk its teeth into every single thing about our lives. And I think we still have a choice on that.
Yeah.
You know, we definitely have a choice on like how we engage with that. And I think it gave us a bit of a buffer. We were over there because we were able to kind of be a little bit more purposeful about how we approached it because it didn't come on quite so fast, right? So we had a little buffer a couple years where we were able to say, okay, our kids are not going to get cell phones until, they
show the maturity to understand they are aware of the dangers of the technology. They understand we still have oversight.
Right, and they'll never have social media. So like Micah bought his own phone. He bought his phone when we came to Florida the first time in 2023 when he was 16 off of like Back Market or something. It's like an old, but he's never had social media.
Yeah.
And Eliza has a phone now really purely as a 16-year-old for being able to message us if we actually have to like leave her home because we don't have a landline.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like those things are...
And communicate with friends.
Communicate with friends
and family.
Yeah, and the grandparents.
Yeah.
Like being able to talk to her.
Yeah.
But I think that it gave us a buffer there, and it enabled, especially it enabled me to really be able to focus on what was really the most important part about homeschooling. And like the why you're homeschooling is the most important thing because there's going to be so many different issues that get in your way.
Yeah.
But if you can really come down to like why you're actually doing it, and it's great to spend time with your kids, it's great to do all those things, but really you want to be able to give your child an actual true worldview, to show them what is the actual reality. Like, because the reality is not iPhones.
Right.
That's not the reality. The reality is not Instagram.
Right.
So I think that's what that living there for so long gave us, was the ability to really like synthesize our own worldview, to not our own worldview, but our own way to help our children see that. And like Brad says all the time, I think one of the things that's hard for a lot of people is it's hard for them to be firm enough with their kids regarding the reality of the world. And I think that was something that we were able to do, is to help them to actually teach them that it's not attractive to fall for all those things. You're not missing out on something better.
Right.
We're not trying to withhold good things from you here.
Yeah.
Look
at the consequences of the school systems today,
Right.
and these poor kids that we see them get off the bus. They're pale.
Yeah.
They're hunched over.
Right.
All of them are looking on their cell phones.
Like
and they go, well, I'm glad you you picked that fight with me.
Right.
Because the addiction that a lot of people have, and it really was a blessing because we still fought those fights, but it wasn't as, I would say, as challenging as it is now. So if we had if we never left the U.S., I feel like I wouldn't change my opinion. I don't think that changed our opinion on phones. But if everyone else has a phone, that becomes a more difficult challenge. And then you have to really, which I think a lot of people sort of fall short on, is you cannot compromise.
Right.
You have to, if you know that cell phones are evil, if you know that social media is evil, you've got to fight that fight. You've got to do that hard work.
And maybe not like evil in the sense like that it's like, because we talked about this with our kids all the time. When would the time be that you would go back to? Because even now, I mean, it's pretty handy having the Find My feature on an 18-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Like I tell them all the time, I'm like, dang, when we were your age, no one knew where we were. It was like absolute freedom. And we got into a lot of trouble. Because no one knew where we were.
No oversight.
Right. So obviously it's nice to be able to like send your older kids out into the world with a little bit more of a buffer and to say, okay, you still need the influence of your parents.
Right.
Like, you didn't turn 18 and all of a sudden become a man that knows everything and is wise and can just make all of his own decisions.
Right.
So it's kind of helpful I think it's helpful. Like, there are benefits.
There's a value.
There's a value.
It's a valuable tool, but if you don't have the right framework of understanding where the where are the ditches?
Yes.
Where are the ditches in no social media, no phones rather, versus full unfettered access. There's a healthy, appropriate medium, just like with sports, just like with eating. There's all these really healthy mediums that I think there's such a pull in one direction or the other that people just fall into ditches.
And you kind of have to always be aligning yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, the big part for me was like realizing that you're not in control, and that was what all those big traveling, all the trips did for me. It was like a real, like, you just really have to you have to see that you're gonna get through it. It made me realize the kids are a lot stronger than you realize. Like, all they're actually capable of a lot of hard things.
All kids actually are.
Right, and it's actually good to put them in situations where they do have to be tough and strong. Like, I remember Abram being like 3, and I hated Dulles International Airport. You know how, like, you get off the airplane and you have to ride that big bus thing? And I remember, like, I think I had Eve strapped on me and he's like falling asleep. And I remember being like, oh, I feel so bad for him. But then it's like, he's fine. He's gonna go home and sleep. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna catch up on all of his sleep.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like that big thing of realizing that I'm not actually in control of everything. And then really seeing that the school systems that we all went to are actually not, like, they're not, I was going to say natural, but they're actually a completely contrived social experiment. Like, education does not happen like that. Education does not happen, just checking off boxes and then you feel like you've done a good job for the day. The homeschooling, and that's why we kind of, we say we've been doing it for 18 years, even though our oldest is only 18, because really that's what homeschooling is. Education is all the time, like all the interactions you have to have with your kid, the home that you create, the habits you have. So it's a freeing thing in a way, because you realize that it's life.
Yeah, because I think that was another blessing of being over there, because we weren't overwhelmed with all these different curriculums.
Yeah.
We had to sort of get down to what is the point? And the point is biblical worldview, having them understand how the world works through the framework of a foundational truth.
Right.
And then ultimately that you never stop learning.
That's it.
There's never, I think modern school systems, and I think what most people have a fear about in terms of homeschooling is
they're going to get behind.
They're not going to know their presidents by the age of 12, and they don't know all the bones of the body.
Know the presidents.
Who actually cares?
Yeah.
I think that's a blessing of technology.
You can learn that.
But the blessing of technology is you can figure that out in 5 seconds. But ultimately, the biggest thing about homeschooling, bar none, is that you're teaching them to learn.
Right.
Because I grew up hating to learn. I see.
You hated school.
I hated school.
Yeah, you hated school.
Therefore,
right.
I thought that I hated learning. I didn't read. So I think, and unfortunately, even in South Africa, we see that these school systems break kids.
Yeah.
They break them. It takes them from these gregarious, learning, curious, and then fit into this mold.
Right.
You have to learn you have to learn Afrikaans. If you don't learn Afrikaans, you don't pass. If you don't learn.
Yeah.
And it's such a broken system where when you realize, yes, there are foundational things that you need to teach your kids. And praise the Lord, there's so many resources available that can make it easy for you.
Right.
But when you sort of release the thought that there's a certain amount of information that I have to fit in my kid's brain.
Right.
When you say that's not it, if I can teach them to learn, if I teach them to love to read, to understand how to approach different topics, how to think, then there is no like
there's
amount.
no limits really of what they can learn.
Right.
Yeah, it's like not a scarcity, like you can keep learning all the time.
Yeah, I'm 42. I learn every day.
Right.
You have to be learning every day, and the school systems trick people into thinking that that it ends when they're 18.
Oh, the other thing.
And they want to get more advanced, and so they go to a college, and then.
Right. The other thing that came to my mind as you were saying that is I feel like South Africa is really where we realized that school is basically daycare.
Yes.
Where you're like, this entire school system exists to have a place to put all the kids.
Yeah.
That's actually it. Like, that's the purpose. Like, there's 40 plus kids in a class. The teachers, some of them can't read. I mean,
that
there's
was
so many.
shocking.
Right. There's so many things where you're like, if you actually had the goal of quote unquote educating children, to make them at least literate and be able to do basic math, the school system fails at this. So just objectively fails.
Yeah.
Because that's not their goal. Their goal literally is just to have kids in some type of daycare. Like they need to manage all the children.
Right.
So it's just funny how you see, and I'm sure we maybe would have realized that
here.
If we had, but I think for our family,
I felt it in my bones.
Yeah, for our family, that was just the path that God chose for us. Was that was how we were going to learn all those things.
Yeah.
And again, it like just reinforced that homeschooling is just your life. It's a lifestyle that you create, and that you don't need a specific curriculum to do it. It can.
You don't need to go to Africa,
right?
To unlearn things.
No,
you don't need to go. You
don't need a farm experience.
Alienate your entire family
right.
so they don't impact you negatively. You have to learn how to manage those
right.
things. So a lot of it is parental responsibility, and I really think. We had Ronnie and that guy Nick over here yesterday, and I'm just hopeful because more and more people saying it's my responsibility to do the hard work, where for generations it was outsource. And so to see a younger generation say it's my responsibility it just gives me hope, because I feel like looking at where we are in the United States, it's no one wants to take responsibility. And really the responsibility starts at home. You're responsible for yourself. Mm-hmm. Then you're responsible for, if you're a husband, you're responsible for your wife. If you're a wife, you're responsible for your kids. That sort of responsibility hierarchy only works when you're homeschooling. It only really, and the more people that do that and take on that responsibility, I mean, I'm hopeful about the future. I don't care how crazy things get, because it's like, number one, I've got 8 kids, so I have to be hopeful about the future. But the more people that are recognizing that they have to take the responsibility, and also to understand there's, like I said, there's so many resources, so many podcasts that are encouraging people to reject this thing. There's so many different curriculum studies. You've done one within the roadmap course to understand, okay, what are all these curriculums?
Right.
How do I deal with these fears? How do I frame my day? We did that in the roadmap course.
Right.
But there's also tons of other things that are really meant to help people really get outside the system and do
right. And we can all learn.
Mm-hmm.
One of my just favorite things about having homeschooled our older kids so far is that I've gotten to relearn.
Yeah.
I've had to unlearn a lot of the things I learned from public school, but then I've gotten to learn with them. Mm-hmm. And you really can create this really awesome life for you and your kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did, and it's cool to look at how we've changed. It doesn't have to look the same all the time. So the way that I did school with our 3 older kids, and the way that I do with the youngers now, it's different than how I did it. But doesn't mean that it's
you just adapt to whatever.
And also kind of what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like with them, I did tons of notebook pages. We all learned to draw. I'd never learned how to draw. Mm-hmm. So we did lots of drawing and painting. Obviously, lots of reading, narrations, copyworks, all that stuff too. And with the younger kids, we do kind of more language stuff. And so you really can create a really amazing, beautiful life without the constraints of this is how it has to look and this is how it has to function.
Yeah.
And I think that's the freedom of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, very good. I hope this was encouraging for everyone. And as always, if you have questions, you can shoot us an email, brad@anyonecanhomeschool.com. If you would like to take our roadmap course, we would encourage you to do that as a new mom or as a refresher. It's anyonecanhomeschool.com/roadmap. Or if you want to actually have a mentor to talk to who's been there and done that, who's raised kids, who can help you fill in those sort of generational wisdom gaps of managing your house as a homeschooler, we have coaching available. So go to anyonecanhomeschool.com, click on the link that says Parents Start Here, and get going. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.